There's a bunch of Marvel news about how Kevin Feige plans to bring in established characters like Deadpool and Daredevil into the MCU. And with this comes some good news and unfortunately some bad news.
It's like the news, but for nerds.
Today's shout out goes to Brandon Rosenthal. Indeed, 1970 was when Tony Stark met his dad in Avengers Endgame. Make sure you stay to the end of this video where we will ask another nerd card question. What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday to you. I'm Josh. Welcome back to the den. And welcome me back to the den. Woo-woo, I'm back. I apologize about no Star Wars Sunday video last Sunday, and I apologize about no show yesterday. I'm just finishing the last of my move. Was traveling and moving big, heavy objects for those days. I would have much rather been doing YouTube videos, but that's what was going on. Hopefully we're out of that. We can focus back on content, baby. Okay, so I was thinking about like, what do I want to do for the comeback show? I know I've only been gone a couple of days, but it just feels so awesome to get back. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of crazy news that's been going on, as always, with nerdy things, and I was like, what do I want to talk about today? And I chose to focus on two rumors that had been circulating around since I left on Friday. One being about Daredevil and Marvel's plans to bring Daredevil into the MCU, and the other has to do with Deadpool, the video that Ryan Reynolds put up about the 5-year anniversary of the leaked Deadpool footage, and this video seemed to hint that he'd be in Phase 5. Basically, I just want to talk about Kevin Feige, something we could sort of glean from the decisions he's made about these films and these shows, and we can talk about how this will relate to these other properties coming in to the MCU. All right, let's start out with Daredevil. This came out several days ago. I saw it on Reddit, and it was pointing to an article on Cosmic Book News by Matt McGloin. And as I've said in the past, I take everything that comes from Cosmic Book News with a huge grain of salt, but there are some reports they've been having recently that seem a little bit more viable than others, and if some of this stuff ends up happening, I will give them a little bit more credit. Either way, just for conversation's sake, this information is coming from Cosmic Book News. Now, in this article, Matt McGloin says he was having a discussion with some of his sources at San Diego Comic-Con, and they were talking about the MCU and the shows, all revolving around Blade and really revolving around Mahershala Ali coming into the MCU, even though he had been Cottonmouth on one of the Netflix shows. It's also important to note that there's a lot of weird stuff going on with this exact issue. I mean, we are getting the cancellation of the Netflix shows, the cancellation of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the startup of Disney Plus, where a lot of this stuff is going to be going. On top of that, there's deep history between Kevin Feige, Ike Perlmutter, and Jeff Loeb, and I'll get into that in just a little bit here, but the basic idea here is that as Kevin Feige proved more and more successful with what he was doing with the MCU, he got more and more power and authority from Disney higher-ups, and one of the moves he made was to split completely from Marvel proper so that he had nothing to do with Ike Perlmutter or Marvel Comics or Marvel Television. He literally had nothing to do with them, and the MCU was allowed to be its own thing. Now, there are a bunch of rumors and speculation and basically just talk of the town that suggests that Marvel will indeed bring Daredevil back into the MCU, and I've even talked about it here on the channel. I mean, Daredevil is one of the only properties that did get a film before. I mean, it had the Ben Affleck film. Daredevil was the first character to be on Netflix because he's the most popular of those characters. And so it just makes sense. Marvel would want the Devil of Hell's Kitchen back in the MCU. Now, going back to that article from Cosmic Book News for a second, it's unclear to me whether or not this conversation that Matt McGloin says happened actually happened. When I read this article, it almost reads like Matt McGloin is just speculating and extrapolating out from a lot of the patterns and the things that have happened before with Kevin Feige and these other properties, and he's sort of saying, well, this is more than likely the way it'll go down, and then he's pretending that that's a scoop backed up by the source. Of course, I don't know. Matt McGloin could have an actual source, but you know, given the reputation of Cosmic Book News, I just feel like it's important to sort of put things in context here. Now, having said that, I mean, I really can't blame Matt McGloin either way, like whether it's a source or he's just thinking that this is the way it will go down. Like we said, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it will go down this way. The bottom line, guys, is when you look at the separation between the MCU and a lot of these other properties, it is a one-way street. The shows reference the movies. Some of the actors from the movies come over to the show, but then there's really no crossover back the other way. It's a one-way street. Feige really not interested in playing ball with Ike Perlmutter or Jeff Loeb. And frankly, guys, that's good. I mean, especially when you look at what happened with some of the Netflix shows, particularly Iron Fist, and then you look at Inhumans, which was an absolute disaster, which originally was supposed to be a movie in the MCU. So I don't know exactly the story there, but Feige wanted to make this movie. You know, Marvel gets it, Marvel Television gets it, and basically they screw it up terribly. And although we absolutely love Kevin Feige and he is the man for the job and has done something incredibly unprecedented with what the MCU is, I mean, we have to just call a spade a spade. The dude does not like to play nice. He doesn't like to share his toys. He's very protective of the brand that he's established. And as he got more and more successful, more and more control was given to him. And this is something we talk about a lot. Like, there's just clashing, right? You had clashing before with Joss Whedon on Age of Ultron. This is why Joss has not really come back to the MCU. You had clashing with Edgar Wright in the Ant-Man film. I mean, you know, just Feige has to have it the MCU way. It's gotta go through Feige. Now, going back to the article and the real scoop here with Daredevil, they are claiming that when Daredevil is brought into the MCU, he will be recast. That there's absolutely no way that Feige will bring Charlie Cox back as Daredevil in the MCU, simply because of all the weirdness that would create between the Netflix shows, the MCU. What about Mahershala Ali that's in that same universe with them? Does he not exist over here? Is it a guy that looks similar? It's just way too messy. Plus, it's just not in control of Feige. Like, Feige wants that control, guys. And so, you know, this is the report and the rumor that's out there, but really, even if that is total bullcrap, it's still probably right. Like, Feige is not gonna bring Charlie Cox into the MCU, and as much as that sucks, and as much as we love Charlie Cox, he's the best Daredevil we've ever gotten. Honestly, incredible show. Incredible show. But I think it's time to maybe face the facts here that, yeah, that show is gonna live where that show lived. It'll always be there. We can always watch those 3 seasons in the Defenders, but that's not the MCU. And that's not the guy that's gonna be Daredevil in the MCU. And on top of that, I still trust Feige to give us an amazing Daredevil in the MCU. And even if it's just as good as Charlie Cox, but then he gets to play with Spider-Man, he gets to hang out with Sam Wilson, he gets to meet the Punisher and hang out with like MCU people, then that one's better, right? Feige's one is better. The sandbox he has is a part of the value. In fact, when I really sat down to think about this, I was like, damn, man, Feige is not gonna let anything from any other show come into the MCU, especially now with Disney Plus and the fact that they can produce shows through Marvel Studios. I mean, you saw Phase 4 slate. It's half streaming shows, and Feige's pretty pumped to have Disney Plus as a way to put more content out for this cinematic universe. And there's only one exception to that rule, and that would be Ryan Reynolds, and this is where we get into the Deadpool of it all. And so very recently, Ryan Reynolds put out a really funny little teaser to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the leaked Deadpool footage, which essentially got that film off the ground. And he's kind of tongue-in-cheek leaking something here, and essentially the leak is that, yeah, Deadpool will be back in Phase 5, which I do believe. I do believe that Marvel has every intention to put Deadpool into Phase 5. But what's really interesting here is that Deadpool is literally the only character that will ever be brought from a pre-established franchise into the MCU, and it's just specifically because of what type of character Deadpool is. Like, he is the type of character that can be self-referential, that can break the fourth wall. So what would be a problem in the Netflix shows if you brought over, you know, the Daredevil from there, what would be a problem with having Charlie Cox there and all the issues with the continuity and things like that would actually fuel the Deadpool movie. Ryan Reynolds could literally joke about it. He could joke about, now that they're at Disney, he can't swear, and every time he swears it could be beeped out or something, and he'll be like, what the is that? What the is going on here? Damn you, Disney! And so frankly, yeah, I believe that Deadpool will be back. And you know, with all that said, I really started to think about what kind of a Deadpool movie we can expect from Disney. And one of the really cool things is, I think we're going to actually see a much better scenario for the Deadpool franchise now that they're in the hands of Kevin Feige than we were gonna see before. Because even though I think Deadpool 2 is a fun movie, it is a major step down, in my opinion, compared to the magic of the first film. And I think when you add the meta, you know, thing with Disney buying Fox, you add that flavor into it, and you also add the fact that now you can play with the newly established X-Men, the newly established Fantastic Four if they get established around that same time. You can have Deadpool hang out with characters like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he could be hanging out with Bucky, he could meet Rocket Raccoon. All of the flavor that we love from the MCU, you can insert Deadpool into that, have him be self-referential, and you've got like literally an amazing MCU film and a really funny Deadpool movie. So as weird as it is, I actually think that the Deadpool franchise is sort of saved by this, and I know there's people out there worried about the Disneyfication of it, and we've heard conflicting things from Disney, like, will this movie be rated R? Will Disney ever make a rated R superhero? There's people at Marvel, including Alan Horn, Bob Iger, and Kevin Feige, who have said different things. You know, they've sort of contradicted each other, so we don't know. But I am personally still incredibly hopeful that the new Deadpool via Disney will be amazing and have all of the charm of the Deadpool movies with all of the just amazing comic book goodness of the MCU. And so that is the news, guys. Rumors about how these other pre-established characters will be coming into the MCU. And the hard and fast rule here is that Kevin Feige doesn't like it unless he has his fingerprints on it. His fingerprints are all over everything in the MCU. He's the sole producer of every single Marvel movie, and there's obviously been a lot of history between Perlmutter, Marvel Television, Marvel proper, Disney, and Feige. And as he continues to slay, he gets more power, and so I really don't expect any franchise that wasn't specifically MCU to come into the MCU and retain any of its old identity. This is all new stuff, baby. And the one exception to that, of course, is Deadpool. So that's the show. Let me know all of your thoughts about everything we just talked about in the comment section below. Now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what is the name of the two writers that did Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, the real heroes, if you remember that from the opening credits of Deadpool 1. But the question remains, who are the writers of Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2? Answer that question in the comment section below. That's gonna do it for this one, guys. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.